Good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. Well, you made it. It's Friday, October 4th, 2019, and this is BRN AM. Here are your top stories. What's holding back financial wellness and the societal implications of financial literacy. The retirement and financial services industry uses the buzzword financial wellness. What does that mean? It can often create confusion for many. And well, it can impact whether or not a financial wellness program can actually be implemented. Here to discuss this and a lot more, George Grombacher. He's the Chief Community Officer for Money Alignment Academy. Hi, George. How are you?
I am doing awesome, Jeff. Thanks for having me back.
I'm glad to see you. Happy Friday. You always bring a very interesting perspective. So you heard me at the top of the show, which was talking about financial wellness, and there's been some pushback and lack of implementation of financial wellness programs. So how would you're someone who's out on the front lines like myself, talking to employers and employees of retirement plans, in and out of retirement plans. How would you define financial wellness? Because it's kind of all over the place.
It is. And financial wellness is one of those enormous terms that's being used more and more and more lately. So how would I define it? I think that for me, it's a matter of working, if we're talking about from an organizational standpoint, it's an organization working to position their people to have the best opportunity for financial success. So it's making programs available. It's how they message to their employees. It's how they remind, and again, just put them in position to be successful.
Yeah, well, it sounds great to me. Our industry, unfortunately, uses a lot of buzzwords, and we got to cut through the clutter on this show especially. So we are not going to tolerate buzzwords at all. I think, that means a lot of things to a lot of people, so we need to define that. Now, George, you just wrote a piece in your blog, which I'm holding up, and I'm not sure everyone can see it, but George does a blog every week. It's called People First, and he opines on a lot of different things. But I was curious, George, you actually talked about financial wellness and the lack of the ability to implement. So what was the thesis there? Why don't you take us through your thoughts on that?
Fundamentally, I talk a lot about needs versus wants, and we're all familiar with that conversation from a budgeting standpoint. But taking that a little bit deeper, it can be extremely challenging to give people things that they need, but don't want at all. Think about it in terms of when you're trying to get your kids to do something, or a spouse or friends. I think the same can be true of the employee-employer relationship. And a lot of the time when you're trying to put people in that position to be successful, you're going to get pushback because some people don't want to be told or to be given advice on diet and exercise or financial stuff in general. So there's invariably going to be pushback.
Yeah, it's that old ostrich head in the sand mentality. I think people, quite frankly, are incredibly intelligent. They know what they're pursuing and know what they want. I think they know what needs to be done on a lot of these issues. But can you blame the employer? And you're kind of in the middle, right? So you're talking to employers, you're talking to employees. Can you blame the employer for wanting to try to make life a little bit better for their employees? But then you can also wrestle with, hey, it's my data, my privacy. I want to make sure that what I have is mine. And I'm not telling the whole world, including my employer, what I have.
No, of course not. And I would never blame. And I think it's almost the opposite of that, which I know we've been talking quite a bit about, just you and I, about how you have to encourage employers to get through or fight past any negative feedback and pushback that they're going to get. Because when you really break it down, how much really negative feedback are you getting? I shared a story about how in an organization of about 200 people, the HR professional got negative feedback from 6 or 7 people. And while that's pretty loud, and maybe you don't like to hear that, we're talking 2 or 3% of your entire employee base. So the vast majority of the people that you are helping, or at least putting in a position to help, are probably happy with what's going on.
George, do you think some of this is cultural within an organization? So I think organizations typically, and I want to get your input on this, typically have kind of been, this is a little bit more qualitative, right? It's a little bit more hands-off that they've wanted to be. They're really focused on, let's get people into the plan, diversified. If they want investment advice or guidance, they can sign up for it, but we just want to hands off. But what we're finding is, and we actually did something yesterday where there's a lot of absenteeism, for example, for people who are caregivers, who have to care for a family member, especially later in life, and have to juggle career and caregiving. Is it about a culture within an organization, not just a company, not for profit, a government?
I think that's everything. I think that whether or not employees are going to be successful, a huge part of that is the culture of the organization. And that's going to come from the top of the organization, the leadership, the CEO, whoever that might be. And in each department, it's going to come from the top. And it's incumbent upon that organization to drive whatever those initiatives are, if it is wellness, if it's financial literacy, because without that, it's not going to happen. And frankly, I think it's a bit of a cop-out when an organization just says, well, oh geez, we're just not going to do that because, you know, we've done these things, we're offering a plan, and let the chips fall where they may. That's fine. But if you're talking about, if you think about it from a different perspective, we're talking about a spouse or a child that you really love and care about, and you see them engaging in a behavior that's destructive or bad for them. Is that what you're going to say? You're just going to say, oh, well, you know, I did what I could. Probably not. So I think it's a matter of finding a happy medium between those two worlds of here's a 401k, you know, see you later, and being overly parental. So the truth is somewhere in the middle. I just abhor apathy. I think it's the worst thing in the world. It'll kill any organization. And if you're part of an organization that is somewhat apathetic like that, I would very much encourage you to make some changes.
Yeah, but I would say, you know, and just kind of talking with people like Devin Banerjee on this program and on our podcast, you know, workplaces are changing and people want to work for organizations that have a mission, are driven. And that, by the way, it's not just a not-for-profit or a corporation or government. I mean, all of them can be mission driven. So I think that it actually is in some ways short-sighted. And I would say to the employers that oftentimes, and get your opinion on this, and then we'll go to commercial, talk about our next topic, which dovetails into this, that if you have a 401k or a retirement plan and a record keeper, oftentimes these are services that are built in to what the record keeper, what you're already paying for.
Yeah. Oh, truly. Yeah. And that piece, it really is, it's an education standpoint or an education issue and an understanding issue, because you could have the greatest tool in the world, Jeff, but if you gave me your guitar, you're like, here, George, play this guitar. I have no idea how to play it. So I could create the most wonderful 401k plan with amazing resources built into it, the Ferrari or Cadillac of 401ks. But if I don't know how it works, if the HR folks don't know how to work, if the employees don't know that's available and how to access it, that's irrelevant then.
Yeah, great points. George, I want to go to a commercial break, but when we come back, I want to talk to you about the societal implications of financial literacy. So stick around, and you stick around as well. Stay tuned right here on BRN AM. And when we come back, George is going to stick around, and we're going to shift gears and talk about the societal benefits of teaching everyone financial literacy. So stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Welcome back. Well, Americans of all ages have trouble with their budgets and understanding the benefits of saving and planning for their financial future. And you know what? States, municipalities, and other organizations have really stepped up their games to teach financial literacy. But what's the impact to society broadly for teaching financial literacy? George Grombacher from Money Alignment Academy is still with us. George, I want to shift gears now. We talked about the importance of financial wellness, what that buzzword means, because it is buzzword, and you know as well as I that our industry is full of jargon, and we need to cut through that. But let's talk about financial literacy, another jargon type word, but let's talk about the societal impact to financial literacy. So why don't you start us off?
Ooh, that is a big one, but an important one.
And we don't have all day, by the way, George, because George can riff, but we love when he riffs.
True. So I think that everybody could probably agree on this idea of personal responsibility that we should all have some. But fundamentally, if our behaviors do not catch up with what we intellectually understand, then I think that we're going to be in big trouble. Just because if I get to age 65 or 70 and haven't saved a penny for retirement and I want to stop working, well, somebody needs to pick up the tab for my retirement or for my living, or where am I going to live because I don't have any money, coming in from work. So how's that going to happen? So from a societal impact standpoint, we need to find some effective tool to get people to take personal responsibility, and that means to start saving money.
Yeah, and I would say that's the macro. When I look at the micro, financial duress, financial stress is one of the leading indicators, or leads to a lot of marital stress, marital strife for people, can often lead to separation, divorce, arguments. That's not good for couples, and that's not good for marriage, but it's also not good for the children who have to be there as well.
Yeah, you're right. Money stress is the leading cause of stress that everybody reports on. It's one of the leading causes for breakups within marriage. I had a conversation with some folks. They're called the money couple a couple of weeks ago, and they said that 80% of us are married to our money opposite. So the way that we view money, if you're a saver or a spender, there's a lot more nuance to that. And being able to have these conversations about money, about the shame that's associated with it, about bad experiences and mistakes that we've made in the past, which we all have made, myself included, then the closer we're going to get to bridging that gap that we're talking about of not having so much stress, not having so many problems with money, not having that impact our work life and then our family and our relationship life as well.
Yeah, and I want to bring it back. You mentioned the broader, you talked a little bit about healthcare and kind of relying on somebody else. If you don't have money saved, you don't just die in the streets in the United States of America. You can get coverage, but that coverage comes at a cost. But if, and this is not like a idealist point of view, or maybe it is, but when you don't have the financial strife, you don't also see a lessening of crime. So if you look at some areas of the country where there isn't as much financial strife, either because there's job creation, there's wage growth, you don't have as much crime. So it doesn't have that negative impact to society, because that is a huge drain on personal and resources of an organization. And from the broader perspective, you don't have those unfortunate conflicts that actually geopolitically either go on in the form of wars or even trade tariff wars.
Yes, and such a great point right there. And if you look at society just as a whole, we've raised billions of people out of abject poverty over the past, I think, 20 years, reading Steven Pinker's work, talking about how we're going to eradicate maybe all of it soon. We're going to move more people into the middle class. So that's good. But the next part of that is, while people do have the income to support better lifestyles, how do we make that shift to saving money for the long term? Because the rates that we're going at, not sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, George, always a pleasure chatting with you, and best of luck for a wonderful weekend. I know you're expecting some big news in the next couple of days. Congratulations to you and your wife. And we'll catch up with you in the next couple of weeks on another really important topic. So take care and best of luck.
Thanks, Jeff.
Well, folks, that wraps up the show. And that wraps up this week of BRN AM. Hey, have a financial topic or someone of interest you think we should interview? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for the latest news, check out today's edition of The Morning Pulse. And don't forget, tomorrow, we release The Weekly Pulse, which is a weekly wrap-up of all the news in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, and so much more. So until next week, keep on saving. And don't forget, roll with the changes.